No doubt you've heard myself and others say the phrase, vote blue no matter who. But what exactly does it mean? And why is it so important, so urgent? Why is it so important not only to vote blue no matter who in 2020, but it is also incredibly important, perhaps even more so, in 2024? Hey everyone, my name's Christian Verstappen, and I have a lot to say about many things. I want to talk about Project 2025, the GOP's plan to destroy America and quite possibly the world. So this is a video by, I am terribly sorry, I do not know how to pronounce this name. I believe it's Leah Miller, and I just want to give that shout out to their channel if you want to see it in full without the speeding up, of course, that I'm going to do, as always.
Well, when the president does it, that means that it is not illegal.
It's a thing called Article 2. Nobody ever mentions Article 2.
More importantly, Article 2 allows me to do whatever I want.
Our common theme is to take down the administrative state, the bureaucracy, preparing to march into office and bring a new army of aligned, trained, and essentially weaponized conservatives ready to do battle against the deep state.
For the last 18 months, conservatives from every corner of the far-right establishment, from extremist think tanks to former members of the Trump administration to tenured academics, have been working both publicly and privately on a new project. The project's goal? To rescue the country from the grip of the radical left, uniting the conservative movement and the American people against elite rule and woke culture warriors. And the stakes are high. According to this group, if we fail, the fight for the very idea of America may be lost. Last month, this group of far-right leaders, known as Project 2025, released a 920-page manifesto titled Mandate for Leadership, the Conservative Promise. In it, the document's 35 different named authors, united and copyrighted by the Far-Right Heritage Foundation, lay out an explicit, comprehensive plan to completely overhaul the U.S. government from the inside out, with the ultimate goal of furthering far-right wedge issues and concentrating as much power as possible in the hands of the president. Project 2025 is touted as the ultimate solution to paving the way for the next conservative administration, which they believe will take power in January 2025. While the entire
One of the big things about this is, so of course, okay. Of course, in reality, we have checks and balances. We have things in place to prevent the president from being a king or a dictator. Basically, what a lot of this comes down to is the GOP doesn't like that there are things that hold the president back from being able to just immediately usurp just a ton of power and do what he and the people he's working with want him to do. And the whole point of this, as we're going to get into here, is ultimately to erode those checks and balances relatively quickly. It's a terrifying thought, and it's why this is all so important.
project mimics the same talking points that Trump has harped on throughout his presidency and current campaign. The leaders of this project make clear that the plan is not dependent on a specific person winning the Republican nomination and ultimately the White House. Instead, it's a blueprint for the next conservative executive, whoever they may be, to push the limits of presidential power so far that they will answer to no one, wreaking havoc on the delicate balance of our three branches of government that have allowed us to function as a democracy for nearly 2.5 centuries. This is the conservative plan to take over the country. Roll the intro. A lot of you like to assume that lawyers universally are millionaires, and while it's true that there are quite a few millionaire lawyers, many of us are just swimming in cesspools of debt that we had to take on to get these degrees in the first place. So it may come as a shock to learn that I am in fact in so much debt. On top of that law degree, I also have an undergrad degree and a house, and I've started a business, and I've taken on more credit card debt than I—
Okay, this is in the incredibly biased Sonic fan in me, but this will add some levity here. To me, their rings 100% look like the rings you get in the Sonic games. They don't look like any other, like, they just look so specifically like those rings. They don't look like any other kind of, they look like, because they look plastic, they look kind of fake. And that's not an insult to their, like, style or anything. I'm just saying they look, they look like they're from a cartoon. Anyway.
I care to admit to. And with rising interest rates and cost of living, that's not a super fun place to be in. I get it. And you, like me, probably wish there was a better solution to pay off your debt. That's where my partner on today's video—
Are we? Yeah, okay, we're doing a sponsor.
To PDS debt launched in for all the shady shit. April 2020. /Miller to complete the quick and easy debt assessment. That's pdsdebt.com/Miller. Thanks, PDS Debt. Launched in April 2022, Project 2025 is the brainchild of the far-right think tank, the Heritage Foundation, which deserves its own entire video for all the shady shit that they've been up to over the last 40+ years. Project 2025 is systematically building the future of the conservative movement and promoting policy objectives that would have devastating consequences not only in our government, but for every person living in this country. That might sound hyperbolic, but I'm telling you, I cover a lot of batshit stories about conservatives, and this one has me spooked as hell, y'all. Their plan to further these goals has 4 pillars. Pillar number 1 is the policy, embodied in that 920-page manifesto they dropped last month. Pillar number 2 is the personnel database, described as the conservative LinkedIn. The objective of the database is to collect resumes and information for thousands and thousands of conservatives from all walks of life and industries in order to source the best candidates to pack every branch and administrative body in Washington and throughout the states. To ensure that this database of personnel and the chosen warriors who will infiltrate the government at every level are properly prepared to represent the conservative goals set forth in the policy, Project 2025 relies on pillar number 3.
I like this bit.
Training. Through an online institute, Project 2025 will prepare the foot soldiers of the conservative agenda to push their policies from day one. And because they've been preparing for years, they will be ready on day one of the new conservative presidency, thanks to pillar number 4. Pillar number 4 is the 180-day playbook, the step-by-step guide for the next conservative president to implement the policies laid out in the manifesto as quickly and systematically as possible in the first 180 days of their term. Through these 4 pillars, policy, personnel, training, and the playbook, Project 2025 aims to overhaul the entire U.S. government from the inside out, putting in place draconian policies and gutting important government agencies, all in the name of the Constitution and good, white, Christian family values. Let's take each pillar in turn, though we will be spending the bulk of our time on pillar 1, the policy, because we have 920 pages to cover, and it is the most fleshed out and horrific part of the plan so far. Project 2025 published their 920-page Mandate for Leadership Policy Manifesto as a free PDF on their website. I considered getting a physical copy to be able to wave around for you just to see what it looks like printed, but that would require me to give $35 to the Heritage Foundation, so digital will do. That being said, I did not, unfortunately, read 920 pages of this thing, though I don't think it's a bad idea to do so. I did, however, read the first 50 pages of the PDF, including the list of organizers, authors, the introductory note, and the foreword, to get a good flavor of what's going on. And frankly, entire books could be and have been written on some of the batshit theories and doctrines they rely on just in the introduction alone. So we have plenty to dig into. Plus, the work of journalists who have pored over the manifesto at length will help us in our dizzying tour of the policies laid out in this manifesto. So let's get into it. The policy book is divided into 5 sections. 1, taking the reins of government. 2, the common defense. 3, the general welfare. 4, the economy. And 5, independent regulatory agencies. The note at the beginning of the paper, authored by Project 2025 director Paul Dans, a former Trump official, lays out what's at stake. The long march of cultural Marxism through our institutions has come to pass. The federal government is a behemoth, weaponized against American citizens and conservative values, with freedom and liberty under siege as never before. The task at hand to reverse this tide and restore our republic to its original moorings is too great for any one conservative policy shop to spearhead. It requires the collective action of our movement. With the quickening approach of January 2025, we have 2 years and 1 chance to get it right. The language throughout
That part right there is like the entire core belief of conservatism. The whole mentality. And listen, evolutionarily speaking, like the way that our minds work and all that stuff, conservatism makes sense. Just like bigotry makes sense. It makes sense to fear what we don't understand. But we don't stop there. We learn, we grow, we develop, we expose ourselves to new ideas. And the concept of conservatism, in and of itself, is just anti-change. And I myself have been somebody throughout much of my life who has been very afraid of change, generally speaking. I remember I had a conversation years ago with a friend of mine who asked me if I like change. And my response was, well, yeah, change that I want to happen, I like, and change that I don't want to happen, I don't. And to me, that makes sense for anybody. Like, isn't that how we would all feel about change? And I think that in truth, that is how we all feel about change. But there's a part of it where change is inevitable. You have to either adapt and grow when it happens, or you will just simply get lost in the dust. There was that guy, the one who's basically responsible, not entirely single-handedly, but effectively for revoking Roe v. Wade. What's his name? Clarence Thomas. Yeah, Clarence Thomas. If I can find it here. Yes, okay, here it is. Clarence Thomas. Oh, fuck off with your goddamn... Get rid of your ad blocker. No, I don't want to. Are you kidding me? I have to... Ugh, fine. I think I have that one. Okay, look, I know how to remove it, just... Okay. Let me find the... Yeah, and then everything lags and they throw a bunch of ads and pop-ups in your face. Oh, please get rid of our ad blocker. and then they just throw a bunch of shit at you. Gee, I wonder why I had an ad blocker in the first place. Anyway, oh god. Let's see here. Okay. It's a direct quote by Clarence Thomas, one of the Supreme Court members who is very much responsible for the revoking of Roe v. Wade in 2022, where he said, "The liberals made my life miserable for 43 years. And I am going to make their lives miserable for 43 years." Thomas, considered the most conservative justice on the court, joined the majority opinion on Friday, which overturned federal abortion protections. Thomas indicated he also believes the Supreme Court would reconsider decisions from the case Griswold, Lawrence, and Obergefell. I think I'm pronouncing that right. Obergefell. Wait, why do you want me to exit? What did I just do? Are we good? Okay. So, essentially, it's not enough that he is attacking freedom of choice as far as, the right to, have an abortion. But he wants to go after gay marriage. He wants to go after Planned Parenthood. He wants to go after contraception, the ability to get, to have a legal ability and not be able to be arrested for having contraception. And that law specifically is in regards to a married couple, right? There are many laws that are not on the books, that are still on the books but aren't actually enforced. Like, for example, here in this wonderful state of Florida, we have a law where you cannot legally live with somebody who you are not married to. Now, could that apply to roommates? You bet it could. Could that apply to non-married couples? Of course. So if they were to do something like actually overturn gay marriage like they did Roe v. Wade, what do you think they would do after that? Well, they would use laws that are on the books, like the one we have here, to make it so that people, well, you're no longer married. Sorry, you can't live together anymore. Absolutely disgusting. And for him to say, they ruined my life, they made me miserable for 43 years, what made you so miserable? He saw changes happening that he didn't like personally. And because of that, he now has a vendetta to take it out on everybody else. That's essentially what it comes down to. And the people that are behind this Project 2025 and that are on board with it and all of those different things are 100% just as, if not more crazy and radical than he is. It is absolutely insane. Also, by the way, notice one of the things he doesn't want to go after is the ability for interracial marriage to still happen. I wonder why.
The policy manifesto and the Project 2025 website is militant, clearly meant to play into the fears and the patriotic duty that far-right constituents feel so strongly, the same militant language that led to the righteous anger of the January 6th insurrection. The report starts with, "We want you. The 2025 Presidential Transition Project is the conservative movement's unified effort to be ready for the next conservative administration to govern at 12 noon, January 20th, 2025. Welcome to the mission. By opening this book, you are now a part of it. Indeed, one set of eyes reading these pages will be those of the 47th President of the United States, and we hope every other reader will join in making the incoming administration a success." And I know this, it's not explicitly about Trump, but listen, we all know that man is not reading a 920-page manifesto in the unlikely chance that he does take the White House in January 2025. Get real, but you get the vibe. This is positioned as a mandate, making readers, ostensibly the conservative foot soldiers who'll do their bidding, feel like they're in on a top secret mission, like this is some G.I. Joe mission shit, because the authors know that is the absolute conservative wet dream and they're playing into it. The foreword includes a tidy summation of all the conservative wedge issues and talking points that have been flying around over the last few decades, all of which are addressed at length in the document. Look at America under the ruling and cultural elite today. Inflation is ravaging family budgets, drug overdose deaths continue to escalate, and children suffer the toxic normalization of transgenderism, with drag queens and pornography invading their school libraries. Overseas, a totalitarian communist dictatorship in Beijing is engaged in a strategic, cultural, and economic Cold War against America's interests, values, and people.
So let's take a look at this real quick here, by the way. Ruling and cultural elite today. First of all, cultural elite. This is very much Jewish question, Nazi propaganda type of stuff. Inflation is ravaging. Yes, that's true. A lot of that is because of things that the right advocates for and pushes and things of that nature. Drug overdoses, well, that's largely because of things like the horrible war on drugs we have, which is an issue, and there are definitely progressive policies that could be put in place in order to look real quick on the whole drug thing. We need decriminalization of drugs. Just to be clear on that, like, people who are on drugs should not be treated as criminals. They are people who are sick and they need help. They do not need to be locked up. They need help. And a lot of times that help can be giving them clean access to those drugs to kind of wean them off of it. It's very dangerous to quit a chemical substance like, say, heroin, for example. It can be very dangerous to just try to quit something like that. Your body develops a dependency on it, like all these different things. So like you need help, but you don't need to be criminalized and your life, be ruined and all this different stuff. Children suffer the toxic normalization of transgenderism, with drag queens and pornography invading their school libraries. So first of all, when they talk about they suffer the toxic normalization of transgenderism and drag queens, what they are talking about is just the concept and just acknowledging that trans people exist. That's what the trans ideology is. Yes, it is normalizing them because they are normal. This is unironically the same kind of conversations people would have about people like having tattoos or interracial marriages. Oh, children shouldn't have to see that. They shouldn't have to see a black and white relationship. They shouldn't have to see that. That's unnatural. Ugh. It's bigotry. And they know that they are losing the culture war. That's why they're so hell-bent on this crazy shit, because they know at this point the only way to win is to cheat, which is also why we have people like Vivek Ramaswamy, I don't fucking care how you, whatever, the ChatGPT of the fucking GOP running mates. He is advocating for making it so that people under 25 can't vote. Why do you think that is? Now, I'm 26, so I'll still be able to vote, right? A lot of people who did vote, like in the last election, but we have seen that Gen Z is a much more progressive generation, even than the one by really anybody. And because of that, they're going to be a hell of a lot more likely to unironically vote blue no matter who, which is what we're getting to with all this as well. And you'll see more and more why exactly this is so important, because yes, the lesser of two evils is the more like the choice we have to make. It sucks, but this is what we're up against. And I want to touch on that part too. The pornography invading school libraries. I want to be super clear on this. We are not talking about children being exposed to nudity or anything like that. What we are specifically talking about are things like books and other things that question gender identity and possibly help a kid through that experience and that journey. We are talking about things that help children to understand their own bodies better. We are talking about things that do things to help children understand things like consent. Very important stuff. But there's this thing within conservatives where they very much want to believe and think, and they do, a lot of them think that sex and sexuality is this completely taboo thing that you don't talk about. A common phrase for decades used to be, the three things you don't talk about, like on a date or meeting someone for the first time or at dinner, whatever, are politics, religion, and sex. Unironically, I guess ironically, these are the three things that I talk about the most. Why? Because I think those three things that they say you shouldn't talk about are the three most important things. And the reason that they are so downplayed and that people don't want you to talk about them is because they know it causes, discussion, and it can cause issues and turmoil and stuff. But how do you resolve problems that are lying underneath without first addressing them? You don't. And what the GOP wants, what many conservatives want, is to just push it down, just ignore it, it'll go away, sweep it under the rug, we don't have to worry about it, we don't have to worry, see, everything's perfectly fine, everything's perfectly, look, I love a lot of like 50s and 60s culture as far as like early rock and roll and a lot of like media and stuff like that. But if we look at, for example, let me see if I can find. Okay, this idea here, the white picket fence, the Leave It to Beaver, the I Love Lucy, like this kind of vibe, this wasn't actually real. And it was real to an extent, but first of all, it was only real for the like upper class people, obviously, but also many people in these environments were in horrible circumstances, especially mentally, emotionally, things of that nature. I mean, we can look at how things like marital rape was still legal, which is a big part of why. And a lot of people, when divorce became, completely no-fault divorce became a thing in the 70s, a big part of the reason there was such a huge increase back then was because a lot of people needed to get out of marriages that they just didn't want to be in. And some of them didn't want to be in the first place, really. But they had no other choice. And without no-fault divorce, a lot of people ended up dead. A lot of women who couldn't leave their husbands legally or without any bullshit of the whole, like, oh, he abused me, she abused me, or he cheated, or she cheated, or any of that shit. A lot of people would find themselves, just maybe a husband find himself with a little bit of cyanide in his meal or in his drink. His wife made him. Oh, my wife made me a nice meal. Oh, got some cyanide. Oh, it's interesting. It's got a weird flavor to it. Yeah, the flavor's cyanide. But no, I'm kidding. I don't think cyanide has a flavor. But no, seriously, like they would be killed, because if someone wants out of something bad enough, they're going to do whatever it takes to get out of it. Am I saying it was right for them to do that? Of course not. But the circumstances that these people found themselves in led them to take drastic action, because we are, after all, a product of our environment and of our circumstances. Now, of course, you can choose how to act in your circumstances and all that, but we're getting into whole like philosophical stuff here and everything, and that's not what I'm trying to get at with all this. The point is, this ideal life only really existed in pictures like this. People have always had struggles, always had problems, always all these different things. But so much of conservatism is pining for this world that never really existed, and fighting tooth and nail thinking that liberals took it away. And when we talk about things like, there are people who unironically believe, I can't remember the guy's name, but there was this clip on Twitter months ago now, where he was like a doctor or something. He was talking about how his kid came home from school, and like he went to give him a hug one night when he was going to bed, and he was like, "Oh, Dad, I don't like." And then the kid was like, "Dad, can you not hug me?" And he was like, "What are you talking about?" He was like, "Well, my teacher was telling me about like, you know, consent in different things, and basically, you know, if I don't want someone to hug me, I don't they shouldn't hug me or touch me or anything like that. And the man unironically said, I'm using the term unironically a lot, funnily enough, but he unironically said, that doesn't apply to me, I'm your dad. That applies to strangers and people you don't know. And that mentality right there, that parents don't have to ask, like, get consent to, like, you know, hug their kid or whatever, that is how child abuse happens. And kids not understanding these things, that is how child abuse happens. And book banning and stuff, and keeping information and knowledge away from kids to do things like learn about how their body works, learn about the fact that, hey, maybe there are some places and stuff that people shouldn't touch you. And by the way, it's not a new thing. I've been wanting to talk about this. I've wanted to bring this up as a little thing, but like the idea of like teaching kids consent is this new thing is not new at all. This is a meme. This has been such a what I'm about to show you here. This has been such a what do you call it? Like a meme. It's like it was like a YouTube poop years ago. All these different things. This is a clip from the Adventures of Sonic the Hedgehog, where at the end of every show, Sonic and Tails give this little lesson to kids. One of them is about like don't like hide in the washing machine, which I guess is a thing kids did. One is about like not smoking, like all these different things, right? And you know, it's done like a funny little cartoony thing, but like this is in the early 90s, like 92, 93, had to at least be 92 because Tails was around. But check this out.
Kids, there's nothing more cool than being hugged by someone you like. But if someone tries to touch you in a place or in a way that makes you feel uncomfortable, that's no good. It's your body. No one has the right to touch you if you don't want them to. So what do? First, you say no. Then, you get out of there. Most important, you gotta tell someone you trust. Like your parents, your teacher, a police officer.
Yes. In the early 90s, Sonic the Hedgehog was teaching kids about consent. This isn't a new concept, but conservatives like to act like anything that they don't like is this new liberal agenda, and back in my day it was so much better. We didn't have this. So many of those fucking idiots, like so many of the people who when was Vivek born? When was Okay, he was born in 85. So he still would have been in the target demographic for that kind of programming. He would have been like 7, I think. Let me do, come on. Oops. Was he born in 85, was it? Yeah, he would have been like 7, maybe 8, or I'm sorry, maybe. Yeah, he would have been 7, maybe 8 if the show came out in 93. I don't actually remember when. Oh, sorry, I just realized that I didn't have it on the screen. I showed Ramaswamy's age. He was born in 85. So he would have been like 7 because the show came out in like 92, maybe 93. And he is someone who is 100% in support of like all of this kind of stuff. People who, like conservatives who grew up with this kind of stuff, are against this, and they're acting like it's this new thing. So many of the ideas about this stuff are not new. Like this is just always been a thing. But now they've made it a culture war talking point issue. But kids aren't having. It's absolutely ridiculous. It's absolutely insane.
all while globalist elites in Washington awaken only slowly to that growing threat. Moreover, low-income communities are drowning in addiction and government dependence. Contemporary elites have even repurposed the worst ingredients of 1970s radical chic to build the totalitarian cult known today as the Great Awakening. Most alarming of all, the very moral foundations of our society are in peril. The forward goes on to list the 4 broad fronts that the policy mandate will cover. Those are 1. Restore the family as the centerpiece of American life and protect our children. 2. Dismantle the administrative state and return self-governance to the American people. 3. Defend our nation's sovereignty, borders, and bounty against global threats. 4. Secure our God-given individual rights to live freely, what our Constitution calls the blessings of liberty. And the manifesto goes on to lay out over 920 pages in 5 sections how they plan on furthering those 4 fronts. Chief among the policies promoted in the manifesto are a gutting of the administrative state and furtherance of the unitary executive theory, which we'll get into what those mean.
Yeah, when they talk about draining the swamp and stuff like that, or how Ramaswamy keeps saying there are 3 branches of government, not 4, he's talking about the administrative state, which essentially makes it so that the president isn't God King like he and so many of the cons want them to be. Because they want it to be, as soon as they get Trump in, as soon as they get... I mean, look, they were gunning for my governor for a long time. What was his name again? I fucking hate the guy. DeSantis. They were gunning for him for a long-ass time. But since he's pretty much dead in the water as far as his campaign goes, they're kind of backing off of him as far as the GOP is concerned. But... you know, they, like, what the GOP wants is that they get their guy in, whoever that'll be, and they can just, boom, start putting laws in place, putting things, like, immediately. They want to turn this into a theocratic dictatorship, which we've gone over before, and we'll go over a little bit more later, because we're going to look at another video of Leha's.
Plus anti-globalist and anti-environmentalist policies to protect from infiltration of Chinese culture into American life and continue the flourishing of American commerce, plus draconian anti-LGBTQ+ policies, and a centering of religion and the traditional family unit in every aspect of governance. Yeah, it's bleak. Let's get into it. By far the scariest aspect of the policy, and the one getting the most critical commentary, is the absolutist commitment to gutting the administrative state and concentrating power into the hands of the president. The administrative state is sometimes called the 4th branch of government, and there have been debates for centuries as to whether it's constitutional. You know all those agencies like the EPA, Social Security Agency, HUD, FEMA, the Fed, the Department of Homeland Security? Yeah, all those governmental bodies that manage the administration of day-to-day operation of the country and promulgate regulations for everything from transportation to healthcare to food to clean water. That's the administrative state. It's not technically in the Constitution, but that doesn't necessarily mean it's not constitutional. And listen, most law students take an admin law class, and I can tell you right now that shit is dry. I barely could keep my eyes open during that class, so I won't.
And just to be clear, without things like that, there was a great video. There's a great series I actually recommend anybody who's interested in this checking out. I think it's still on Netflix. Find... Yeah, oh, I'm sorry, the G Word. I don't remember, let me see if I can find what episode it was. Food. Okay, so, actually, it's not even just food, but like, Adam Conover did this really good, you know, Adam Conover from Adam Ruins Everything. He did this really good series on Netflix called The G Word. He actually... Barack Obama co-produced it and was in the first episode too, briefly, but and the last episode. But in any case, basically what he does is he goes through all the things like food, weather, money, like all these different things. Like really good series, highly recommend it. Where essentially what he goes through is he goes through all this information and he starts to peel back how basically so many things that we take for granted, like the fact that our food is not going to be spoiled and ready to, like our meat is not going to be spoiled and ready to kill us when we get it from the store. And the fact that the weather, that like what the weather app says on our phone or on the online, whatever, or your GPS, so many of those things that we take for granted are things that are put in place by the government, and specifically the 4th branch of government.
Bore you with too much detail, but this issue does take on a new and much more important meaning when you learn what Project 2025 wants to do about it. So here's some Admin Law 101. Admin Law governs the structure, decision processes, and behavior of administrative agencies. Those agencies are created by statute, executive order, or by state constitutions. Admin agencies are also referred to as commissions, boards, authorities, bureaus, offices, departments, divisions, etc. They're created by executive order, meaning when the president says so, or by Congress. Say Congress passes a law saying something is illegal. In that same law, they might say, we also create this new agency, and this agency is tasked with overseeing and implementing this law. For example, the Federal Food and Drug Administration was created by the Pure Food and Drugs Act of 1906 to oversee the implementation of that law. The main functions of administrative agencies agencies are to investigate, make rules, and adjudicate. That's why there's administrative law courts. They're not state or federal courts. They're separate, less formal courts where agencies can conduct hearings and enforce the regulations that they write and promote. Those admin law rulings can be appealed up to state and federal courts, but most of the day-to-day workings of administrative agencies happen within the agencies and their courts. That doesn't mean, however, that there is zero oversight of these agencies. Like I said, rulings in the admin law courts can be appealed to state and federal courts. Congress can pass laws like the Administrative Procedure Act to rein in administrative agencies, and Congress also still controls the purse strings. The first federal admin agency was the State Department, created in 1789 when Congress was still chock-a-block full of original framers of the Constitution, I might add, which does back up claims that the administrative bodies are implied in the Constitution. The idea behind creating these agencies, instead of having Congress or the president alone in charge of implementing the laws, because it turns out it takes a lot of work to run a country, and agencies are in charge of creating a lot of regulations. Further, agencies are staffed by subject matter experts, at least in theory. So, for example, the people in the EPA have spent their careers learning about environmental policy and regulation, and are therefore much better positioned to implement a law than the lone president or Congress people. And the Supreme Court has repeatedly upheld the constitutionality of administrative agencies and tends to give a lot of deference to their decisions because they are the subject matter experts. While Congress often creates the agencies, most of them technically fall under the purview of the executive branch, of which the president is the head, because the Constitution vests the power to faithfully execute the laws of the country in the president in Article 2. Admin agencies do just that. They execute the laws, and they oversee said execution in a way that a single executive couldn't, and also in a way that ensures extensive checks and balances over executive authority. But this is why the president typically appoints heads of all these agencies, because they're technically part of the executive branch. But while the heads of those agencies come and go with the politics of the time, the people operating under them are not tied to politics or a president and tend to make careers out of working in those agencies. This again creates a modicum of separation of powers and ensures that people with subject matter expertise are staffing these agencies. So sure, you can appoint the attorney general as president, but you can't fire all the prosecutors who don't agree with you. I was working at the U.S. Attorney's Office in Boston the day that Jeff Sessions was fired, and the jubilation some of those lawyers felt, it was palpable, and they don't have to worry about losing their job because of that, or at least not for now. Okay, so this is why administrative law is considered the fourth branch of government. It wields a lot of power. Some would say too much power, which is why Project 2025 is so dead set on gutting administrative bodies. Are we on the same page? Great. You are now more of an expert on admin law than 99% of the U.S. population. The forward in Project 2025's policy manifesto lays out their objections to the current state of affairs. Congress passes intentionally vague laws that delegate decision-making over a given issue to a federal agency. That agency's bureaucrats, not just unelected but seemingly unfireable, then leap at the chance to fill the vacuum created by Congress's preening cowardice. The federal government is growing larger and less constitutionally accountable, even to the president, every year. Okay, so they're saying there's too many bureaucrats and the president doesn't have enough power. It continues. The conservative promise lays out how to fire supposedly unfireable federal bureaucrats, how to shutter wasteful and corrupt bureaus and offices, how to muzzle woke propaganda at every level of government, how to restore the American people's constitutional authority over the administrative state, and how to save untold taxpayer dollars in the process. So they're basically Ron Swansoning the government, attempting to put people in places of power to dismantle federal agencies from the inside. Except it's not a fun joke about a lovable libertarian with a mustache. It has far-reaching consequences that are made all the more dire when you learn about the unitary executive theory, the theory upon which many of the Project 2025 recommendations rely. Okay, we got admin law, unitary executive theory. We're getting into some deep constitutional law principles today, my friends. And if you want even more of a primer on constitutional law, check out my free 2-week email course called Smartass Civics. Sign up to receive daily bite-sized morsels of con law delivered straight to your inbox. You'll be beating your racist Uncle Rick at arguments by Thanksgiving. Link in the description. Okay, so unitary executive theory. It's this batshit theory that has only been made up in the last few decades. In fact, we have our good old friend Ronald fucking Reagan to blame once again for its proliferation, because of course. The theory came to prominence during Reagan, but really put down roots during the presidency of George W. Bush. Basically, the theory rejects the idea of 3 equal branches of government put in place to ensure a rigorous system of checks and balances so no one branch becomes too powerful. Instead, the unitary executive theory says actually, inherent in Article 2 of the Constitution, the president has complete control of the executive branch. So Congress can't create all of these agencies and put power in the hands of agency heads to make decisions. That power is supposed to be concentrated in the hands of the one singular executive. Reagan's
What's really funny about this is you'll have, I was thinking about this a while ago, you'll have so many modern day conservatives who will virtue signal and talk about how much they love the founding fathers and how liberals or anyone who's remotely left-leaning is, destroying the founding fathers' legacy because we do things like point out that a lot of them had, I think all of them actually had slaves and were not great people. But you know what they didn't believe in? You know what they kind of fought a whole war over? Having a king. They didn't want a king. They didn't want someone who was just in charge of everything. In fact, George Washington, who didn't want to be president in the first place, after he was president, he stepped down after 4 years because he said if he ruled any longer, he'd feel like a king. He didn't want to be a king. They didn't want a king. The founding fathers did not want a king for this country. And yet the conservatives who claim to love the founding fathers so much are so, they want the GOP leader, whoever that'll be, which right now, of course, they're gunning for Trump again. They want him to be king. They do. They want him to be king, and anything that, stands in their way is they want to get rid of. That's the whole point of this.
Lawyers came up with the idea in order to push deregulatory efforts. Bush Jr. used it to lend validity to his exercises of power after 9/11. While Obama expressed a more modest view of presidential power initially, he too exercised authority that circumvented Congress in several policy areas, especially in the deployment of U.S. military forces overseas. And then Trump, of course, came in and was
That is true. Obama was far from a perfect president or far from a perfectly progressive or anything like that. He did do some good things, and some good things happened while he was in office for sure, but he also, and he did a lot of drone strikes. He wasn't great on foreign policy. He was very, very, very charismatic, which was his strongest quality. But there were, he He certainly wasn't perfect.
Like, hold my Big Mac, let me try this. And he frequently tested the bounds of acceptable exercise of executive power, from Muslim bans to the border to threatening sanctuary cities. He declared over and over that his authority extended to overriding congressional laws and funding authority. As one judge stated in response to Trump's threats against sanctuary cities, the separation of powers acts as a check on tyranny and the concentration of power. If the executive branch can determine policy and then use the power of the purse to mandate compliance with that policy by the state and local governments, all without authorization or even acquiescence of elected legislators, that check against tyranny is forsaken. Trump considered himself and his presidential powers not only beyond the bounds of Congress, but even beyond the bounds of judicial review, arguing that his travel ban was unreviewable by the federal courts. The judge in that case declared there is no precedent to support this claimed unreviewability, which runs contrary to the fundamental structure of our constitutional democracy. Even scholars who are in favor of wide-reaching executive power are appalled at Trump's behavior. John Yoo advocates in favor of the unitary executive theory and famously wrote a memo defending the legality of waterboarding under Bush. But he also wrote a New York Times editorial entitled "Executive Power Run Amok," saying, "Even I have grave concerns about Mr. Trump's uses of presidential power." Yikes. But it appears that Project 2025 is supporting the idea that the president should constitutionally be entitled to vast levels of control over all administrative agencies, what they do, and who runs and staffs them from the top down, and Congress should have no ability to check that executive authority. Many constitutional law scholars argue that this is beyond the bounds of the Constitution, no matter how you look at it. But the first administration of Donald Trump, whether or not there's a second, has already done the damage. As Jeffrey Crouch writes in his 2020 book on the unitary executive theory, yes, there are entire books about this, once precedents have been established for presidents to exercise expansive presidential powers with little pushback, future chief executives will be less likely to feel responsible for dialing them back. And Project 2025 is betting on just that, with its expansive overhaul of every administrative agency in the country. If he does get back in the White House, Trump has made clear that he'll finish what he started, declaring he will find and remove the radicals who have infiltrated the Federal Department of Education, and promising to demolish the deep state.
We will expel the warmongers from our government. We will drive out the globalists. We will cast out the communists, Marxists, and fascists. And we will.
And by the way, that type of language right there is McCarthyism. Like that is the whole. Oh, I've got a list of all these communists. I've got a list. This is Red Scare shit. Like this is insane. And it's stuff that a lot of these people lived through, to an extent at least. And the fact that they're doing it again effectively is insane.
We'll throw off the sick political class that hates our country.
He plans to do this in part through what's been called Schedule F, a plan that Project 2025 appears to adopt as well. In the waning days of Trump's presidency, he passed an executive order called Creating Schedule F in the Accepted Service. This order removed employment protections from career officials, those who work in government agencies in a non-political, non-appointed position, deeming them Schedule F employees who may be fired at will by the president, presumably if they don't show sufficient loyalty or execute the duties of the agency in the way the president deems necessary, effectively stripping any sort of checks or balances on the president's ability to control federal agencies from the top down. In fact, two former Trump White House aides, Johnny McKenty and Russell Vought, who were instrumental to Schedule F, are also involved in Project 2025, indicating a continuation of the policy by whatever conservative president next takes the White House. McKenty is quoted as saying, "Our current executive branch was conceived of by liberals for the purpose of promulgating liberal policies. There is no way to make the existing structure function in a conservative manner. It's not enough to get the personnel right. What's necessary is a complete system overhaul." And that is at the heart of Project 2025.
So as we discussed before, by definition, the concept of conservatism is literally anti-change, anti-progressive, anti-progression, to be conservative is to go backwards. Like actually to go backwards. It is so funny going back to the Founding Fathers thing. I was thinking about this and I was like, Founding Fathers would hate the modern GOP. Like, are you kidding me? Like, really? You think these guys that like fought and died? I mean, I'm sure they'd agree with how the Founding Fathers, I'm sure the Founding Fathers would agree with how the GOP feels about minorities and stuff and women and all that. But other than that, like, as far as running the government, they hate him. Because what they are, the GOP, especially at this point, is anti-American. Completely against the concept of democracy. Again, like that whole thing about limiting voter age to 25, they already put so many restrictions on people, primarily poor people. They put so many restrictions to make it so that the people who they don't want to vote, who are, likely not going to vote for them, don't vote. It's why they're against things like mail-in ballots. Because even though it's been happening for a long ass time, for things like, military people who are off, fighting wars and just overseas and stuff, so that they still have a say in what happens with their country, even though it's been happening for people like them and has been going on for a long time, now all of a sudden it's a problem because, it became more popular during 2020 because of COVID. And who are the people that are going to be more likely to do mail-in ballots? Well, not the people who are constantly being, if the GOP, as they were are obviously screeching about how terrible mail-in ballots are, then yeah, obviously the mail-in ballots are not going to be from your side, not going to be from people voting for your side. But they will do whatever they can to suppress people, to suppress the vote. They don't, because they don't want a democracy. They only want people who are going to vote for them, who will vote for them. I legitimately want, basically what we have as far as, well, okay, I would like to see real 100% democracy, as in, I really like the phrase "land doesn't vote, people do," because, like, it shouldn't be based on a percent. It should be every person's individual vote matters. Now, I understand why, with the billions of people we have in the country, why that isn't necessarily feasible, but it is what I would like to see in general.
Plan. None of their policies and wedge issues work without gutting the administrative states and concentrating more power in the hands of the president. Of course, their goal is also to pack Congress.
Also, a national holiday for voting, a paid national holiday would be great. A way to do it online. I'm sure there are many different things, but obviously the GOP is going to be against it, because anything that gives more access for people to vote, people are going to be less likely to vote for them, because the lie that the cons push is that, and I think we're going to get into this with the next video that we cover, but they believe that they are the moral majority. That there's even a program, an organization called the Moral Majority. And the reality is, they aren't. They want to think and say that their way of thinking, their bigotry, their all this stuff is actually what the majority of people believe. But that's not true. The reason things like, even, very liberal, identity politic things and stuff, the reason that, like, LGBTQ and other, like, minorities have, like, swelled up over years and have become more popular in media and stuff is not because of a woke agenda. It's because of capitalism. And it's because people who are resonating in some way or another with these ideas and with these characters in media, with these stories, with these everything, are giving credence to that and making it more popular. That's not a bad thing. That's just how it works. Things that appeal to more people are going to become more popular. But what cons don't like is they want to believe that in actuality, what they believe is popular and everyone else is just they're buying into the woke agenda, or they're just saying that they support gay people or whatever because they don't want to get canceled or something. And there are people who don't have any morals or principles or things like that. 100%. They'll just say whatever's popular, sure. But a core part of being a functioning human being in a society, and really just living in general, is having an open mind and understanding that just because you might not agree with and understand something or someone right off the bat doesn't mean you can't come to an understanding with them and come to a place where ultimately you realize, hey, I might not get it, but you do you. I have a very simple philosophy of there's not a one-size-fits-all way to live life. We all have to find our own way, and whatever, as long as you're not hurting anybody else in that process, you're all good. You're all good. But cons? No. It's their way or the highway.
In the courts with as many conservatives as possible, but that's less of a problem when you establish an executive with unchecked power. And through that unchecked power, the new conservative executive will be able to gut agencies and put people in place to further conservative agendas. Those include a push away from environmental protections in favor of becoming a fossil fuels industry leader.
This is one of the reasons, by the way, that younger people are less likely to vote Republican. The Republicans did things that turn a lot of people against them since they are so openly against environmental protections. And when they revoked Roe v. Wade, they put abortion on the ballot. They turned basically all women against them, and anybody who supports like freedom of choice as far as, you know, parental planning and stuff like that goes. Because abortion is 100% on the ballot. And so is climate change. And so are many other things. Which is why, as we will continue to see throughout this video, it is imperative that you vote blue no matter who.
A move away from what they call globalism, including encouraging corporations to bring jobs back from overseas. And the foreword to the manifesto declares, "Those who run our so-called American corporations have bent to the will of the woke agenda and care more for their foreign investors and organizations than their American workers and customers." Today, nearly every top-tier U.S. university president or Wall Street hedge fund manager has more in common with a socialist European head of state than with the parents at a high school football game in Waco, Texas. Many elites' entire identity, it seems, is wrapped up in their sense of superiority over those people. But under our Constitution, they are the mere equals of the workers who shower after work instead of before. And while that passage is absolutely unhinged for many reasons, there are a few things we can agree on here. American corporations absolutely do care more for their foreign investors and organizations than their American workers and customers. And yeah, they hide behind woke language like DEI while also being awful for workers, the environment, and equality writ large. But I think conservatives genuinely think that corporations actually believe the DEI bullshit they spew, and that it's not just a way to avoid lawsuits. Like, come on guys, I thought you were a little smarter than that. Also, I would wager a bet that the framers of our Constitution, largely products of the Academy, did not consider themselves equal to laborers who showered after work. The policy also shows an outsized obsession with China, another popular conservative talking point, saying that China is a totalitarian enemy of the United States, not a strategic partner or fair competitor, and that America's elites have betrayed the American people. The solution to all of the above problems is not to tinker with this or that government program to replace this or that bureaucrat. These are problems not of technocratic efficiency, but of national sovereignty and constitutional governance. We solve them not by trimming and reshaping the leaves, but by ripping out the trees, root and branch. The report goes on to say, illegal immigration.
But just to be clear, yeah, China has a lot of problems. They're not great either. What they're doing to people like in, you know, Thailand, what they're doing, you know, with like Thailand, for example, not good. They're not great either.
Immigration should be ended, not mitigated. The border sealed, not reprioritized. Economic engagement with China should be ended, not rethought. Our manufacturing and industrial base should be restored, not allowed to deteriorate further. Confucius Institutes, TikTok, and any other arm of Chinese propaganda and espionage should be outlawed, not merely monitored. Another area of grave concern for Project 2025 is the proliferation of LGBTQ ideas and transgenderism, suggesting draconian measures that many critics are saying would effectively criminalize LGBTQ expression. As the foreword to the manifesto says, the next conservative president must make the institutions of American civil society hard targets for woke culture warriors. This starts with deleting the terms sexual orientation and gender identity, diversity, equity, and inclusion, gender equality, gender equity, gender awareness, gender sensitive, abortion, reproductive health, reproductive rights, and any other term used to deprive Americans of their First Amendment rights out of every federal rule, agency regulation, contract, grant, regulation, and piece of legislation that exists.
Wait a minute. Can we take a moment to look at that irony there? We're going to get rid of these words to protect the freedom of speech. We're going to remove words to protect... Like, what? That doesn't make any sense. More speech, more words would only encourage freedom of speech. I love how, you know, again, it's that whole push it under the rug. We want to act like it doesn't even exist. We're getting rid of these words. We want to act like it doesn't even exist. Get it out of here.
It goes on to say, pornography manifested today in the omnipresent propagation of transgender ideology and sexualization of children has no claim to First Amendment protection. Its purveyors are child predators and misogynistic exploiters of women. Their product is as addictive as any illicit drug and as psychologically destructive as any crime.
That right there, by the way, and I'm sure we'll get into this more specifically, possibly with the next video here, possibly with just in general, that kind of language right here, this is why I have such an issue with the part of the left and progressives who are very much prudish and sex negative and things like that. This is why I have such an issue with that, because this is where it leads. That right there, what the GOP is advocating for, that is where all of that shit leads. So if you're like being the fucking prudes that a lot of you are, that right there, that's where it leads. I know this, and God, I want to get into this more specifically at some point. And again, I don't know if I'm going to. What happened? Okay, this is the second time. Why is this? Are we not on the? Wait a minute. We're on 5G. What are we on here? Doesn't tell me, obviously. Are we having Wi-Fi problems? Like, what's the deal? Are we back? Are we good? I can't. Okay. I want to do a more specific video about this kind of thing in the future, and maybe I'll get to talk about it even more in the next video we cover. I don't remember specifically, but I have seen, both because I was raised relatively religiously and I had a very prudish mother, I have seen what the like prudish sex negativeness does, where it leads, how it hurts people. I've seen all of that, and it irks me to no end that there are progressives who now parrot those kind of talking points. This language right here, there are many progressives these days who are saying the same kind of shit. It's disgusting.
Pornography should be outlawed. The people who produce and distribute it should be imprisoned. Educators and public librarians who purvey it should be classed as registered sex offenders. And telecommunications and technology firms that facilitate its spread should be shuttered.
That is so... I mean, obviously, Leah mentioned how draconian all this shit is, but like, holy shit. Much of art that we have today was at the time, and I'm sure by many of the GOP, would be considered now pornography. The term ultimately means an image or video or some form of media that is designed to elicit sexual arousal. Many famous artistic paintings of and sculptures of people in the nude are technically pornography. And so much of all of this stuff, obviously the GOP would be completely against. So much art and history and so much like it is such a vague thing, and as we're seeing here even in this video with this Schedule F thing as is, there's a phrase, another one that I very much quite like. The death of porn is the canary in the coal mine. Because if that goes, that's it. If you think they're stopping there, you're a fucking idiot. That is the death of free speech. 100%. That is the beginning of the end. And again, it's why I'm so against and vocal against the progressives who unironically say this kind of shit.
As far as I can tell, to them, pornography includes any discussion of being transgender or really discussion of sexual and gender identity, period, based
Exactly.
on their reference to educators and public librarians who've been under attack for allowing children to check out such psychologically destructive books as And Tango Makes Three, a book about gay penguins, and Sparkle Boy, a book about a little kid who wears a tutu. But the rape and murder in the Bible is fine and definitely requires zero therapy later in life. A later chapter in the manifesto on the Department of Health and Human Services advocates that the president should direct agencies to rescind regulations interpreting sex discrimination provisions as prohibiting discrimination on the basis of sexual orientation, gender identity, transgender status, sex characteristics, etc. This would strict protections for LGBTQ folks, as well as women, it seems, given that gender identity is listed, effectively making current regulations around sex discrimination fully obsolete. The chapter further states that the next president...
Yeah, so to put that in layman's terms, what that means is ultimately, currently we have things where people can't be discriminated from jobs or places like anything on the basis of, sex or, sexual identity or what have you. That would make it so that someone would be like, oh yeah, we're just not going to let you in here in this place of business. Like, you could be kept from getting a job, from getting a home, a place to live, any of these things, simply because, like, you're gay or you're trans or you're a woman. Because, look, do you think this kind of shit is going to apply to cishet white males? Well, maybe if you're a left-wing advocate like myself or many of the other people like me, but I don't know. Depends how far they want to take it, right?
Should require agencies to maintain a biblically based social science reinforced definition of marriage and family, meaning the next president should push to remove protections for same-sex marriage. And that's not the only reference to the Bible or the sanctity of the family in the policy document. Its 920 pages are littered with references to the Bible and Christianity and the traditional family unit. The foreword declares the most important community in each of our lives and the life of the nation is the family. Today, the American family is in crisis. 40% of all children are born to unmarried mothers, including more than 70% of black children. There is no government program that can replace the hole in a child's soul cut out by the absence of a father. Which, first of all, that's some old school Republican language. The loud welfare queen wolf whistle of Reagan rings on into the night, I see. But also, frankly, as someone without a dad, I can confirm that actually the health insurance I had through the state as a poor recently graduated 22-year-old paid for the therapy that I needed to fill that hole. So put that in your pipe and smoke it. But that's not the point. The point is to demonize single mothers, especially black.
Okay, just to be clear, people that have two parents, potentially more, generally fare better than people who only have one. It's just basic math. You have two people to take care of you. Of course, though, and it's so funny too, right? Because, like, the GOP, this idea of, like, the family unit being specifically a husband, wife, and their kids is very new as well. Because you know what another phrase? I'm just throwing out all kind of different phrases I like today. You know the phrase, it takes a village to raise a child? There's a reason that phrase exists. Because it's true. The idea of being in your little home, your little castle, and just having two people raise a child is so new and so, I'll say, unrealistic. And it has generally been understood by people that, yeah, you need multiple different people in a child's development that take place in their development in order to properly raise a child. That doesn't necessarily mean everyone has to be, changing diapers and cooking and all these different things, but, like, every person that child meets and has frequent interaction with is important in their life. And you can still get that with small towns. It's not like it has to be gone because of technology or anything. You can still get that I always loved the small towns in like the movie It's a Wonderful Life, for example, where you have that little thing where like, let me see if I can find an example of what I'm talking about here, that you can still have a better like way of life than this, where everyone's in their own little home castle. Let me Okay. Let me try to just find an example here. I mean, this is a Christmas movie, so it takes place during Christmas time. But might be Hometown? Wouldn't you know? Here. Okay. We'll just go with like the small town aesthetic. So, oh my god. Okay. Basically, what we're getting at here, what I'm getting at here, is the idea of a walkable city. I always loved how in old timey movies you would have these characters and they would just kind of like, go around the town, and everything would kind of be in like this little area. You'd have like, you'd have the theater, you'd have doctors, you'd have like the things you need and the things you want for entertainment. You'd have all these different shops and all these different things. You'd have all this stuff going on. You'd have life happening. You'd have people just kind of like, bouncing around the city, doing their thing, having a good time. Like that, in that you can have like that kind of environment, for example, and it is much healthier for a child's development to be raised in that kind of environment rather than one where everybody's secluded in their own little homes like this. Now, granted, this is the, propaganda, right? But even still, I mean, look, there's a reason why a lot of like, emo music, like pop punk, punk rock, all that stuff, so much about it is about getting the fuck out of the suburbs because they don't want to be there. And that was something I very much related to growing up. One of the reasons I love that kind of music. But like, I mean, there's a reason so many of these bands, even throughout like the 90s and the 2000s, like Blink-182, Green Day, All Time Low, I think like Simple Plan and like so many of these other different artists had all these songs about getting out, like getting out of the suburbs. It's like a meme of like Midwest emo, especially of getting out of town and going and seeing the world and all that, because people are miserable there. Like it's insane. It's insane. It's being in like walkable cities and stuff where life is happening and all this is a much healthier place to raise kids. I'm not saying like the type of cities that we have now are perfect. Like, unfortunately, yeah, there are a lot of problems in places like, downtown LA, for example, or Portland and stuff like that. Like, yes, A lot of those places have problems, but conceptually, they could be great. And I think should make cities great again.
Ones and place the blame of all of society's woes on the backs of individuals who just need to work harder to maintain their traditional family units, and not on the system that leads to impoverished single mothers in the first place, like, I don't know, the mass incarceration of black fathers, for example. One of the main stated goals of the policy is securing our God-given individual rights to live freely against the woke agenda. The opening note of the manifesto states, today the left is threatening the tax-exempt status of churches and charities that reject woke progressivism. They will soon turn to Christian schools and clubs with the same totalitarian intent. In the chapter on COVID-19 policy.
Yes, there should absolutely be taxes for that. And the reason for that is because the reason that we have the separation of church and state is because the deal is effectively, okay, we won't tax you, but you can't influence politics. And yet we have preachers preaching from the pulpit all the time. No, they can't directly tell you who to vote for, but they can tell you who they're voting for, and they can strongly suggest who you should vote for if you're a good Christian. Of course, in America, with the evangelical Christian church being the majority in America, who do you think they're telling these people who they should vote for if they're a good Christian? So the whole point for those of us that advocate for, taxation of religious organizations is that, hey, if you're going to be influencing politics, you need to be responsible for, paying taxes. Fair is fair.
Policies. The author asks, how much risk mitigation is worth the price of shutting down churches on the holiest day of the Christian calendar and far beyond as happened in 2020? What is the proper balance of lives saved versus souls saved? And the fact that these people think that the federal government should be concerned with saving souls tells you enough about the belief system of the people who want to overrun our government. The chapter on the U.S. Department of Labor states, God ordained the Sabbath as a day of rest, and until very recently, the Judeo-Christian tradition sought to honor that mandate by moral and legal regulation of work on that day, and blames consumerism and secularism for the decline in Sabbath observance, calling on Congress to encourage communal rest by amending the Fair Labor Standards Act to require that workers be paid time and a half for hours worked on the Sabbath, which sounds kind of nice except for the whole Christian nationalism thing. The chapter on the U.S. Department of State says that special attention must be paid to challenge.
Yeah, I'm not opposed to working time and a half for those that have to work on weekends. Yeah.
Challenges of religious freedom, especially the status of Middle Eastern Christians and other religious minorities, as well as the human trafficking endemic to the region. But of course, we know which religious freedom they're concerned with here. In all of this, Project 2025 essentially creates a blueprint for the proliferation of a Christian nationalist agenda at every level of government. You guys, that's just one pillar of Project 2025. This 920-page manifesto is pillar number 1, but it is the most extensive because it lays out the foundation for everything to come, and how the next president should go about pushing every conservative talking point imaginable, all with the backdrop of eviscerating federal agencies and concentrating as much power as possible in the hands of the president. Pillar number 2 is the creation of a personnel database, what they're calling the conservative LinkedIn, which sounds like hell on earth, from which to pull qualified conservatives to place at every level of government. They have an application to be part of the personnel database linked on their website. So I thought, hell, maybe I'll apply. Y'all are always telling me that I should get involved in government. They even had boxes I could check saying that I'm liberal and progressive, so it seems like maybe I'm welcome too. I just answered a few questions, and they were all interestingly worded as though they were trying to woke bait me.
I'm honestly surprised they even have the ability to check off that you're liberal or progressive, because I would think they'd only, it'd be like, liberal progressives need not apply, basically.
Like, the gender wage gap is the result of prejudice and discrimination. Agree or disagree? Or, the U.S. needs nationalized healthcare. Agree or disagree? I answered honestly, attached my resume, and submitted. A few minutes later, I received a confirmation email that my application had been received. We'll see what happens next. Seems like a good way to keep abreast of developments. Seems like definitely something that could easily, be overrun with liberal and progressive applications. It would really be too bad if, every person who watched this video submitted an application to be added to the database. Seems like it would make their job a lot harder to find the good conservative candidates in all those applications. I mean, that's just something I was thinking about. I'm just spitballing here, okay? I left the link to the application in the description just so that you can do your own independent research and form your own opinions. The third pillar of Project 2025 is training. According to the Project 2025 website, the Presidential Administration Academy covers topics ranging from how to identify appointee positions for which you qualify, to navigating the necessary background and security clearance processes, to recognizing and addressing the dangers of the administrative state. Potential appointees will learn the intricacies of the federal budget process, how to work with the media, managing congressional and stakeholder relations, the federal procurement process, and dozens of other topics that provide the knowledge and skills you'll need to be an effective presidential appointee. Current certificate programs offered are called Prepared to Serve, Conservative Governance 101, and Conservative Governance Advancing Policy, with more on the way. It appears that the application to take those courses is the same one to be added to the personnel database. So if you for some reason decided to, submit an application and overwhelm their personnel database, maybe you would also be given access to these courses. I'm not sure. Definitely do your own research. The final pillar, pillar number number 4 is the 180-day playbook. This appears to be yet to be written, but according to the website, the playbook would include a comprehensive, concrete transition plan for every single federal agency to implement in the first 180 days. This mirrors the plan that the Heritage Foundation gave to Reagan when he entered office, allowing him to hand off vetted conservative policy initiatives to each agency without having to do much work on his own. The Heritage Foundation, which is the creator of Project 2025, is seeking to redo what they did with Reagan, but put it on steroids. That 920-page manifesto is a good indication of the types of recommendations that they'll give to each agency. Okay, so I hope that I have sufficiently communicated the gravity of this plan. If a Republican wins the presidency in 2024, they will be handed this plan. They, of course, aren't required to do anything with it, in theory, but given that Trump and DeSantis, the two frontrunners for the nomination, are both batshit fucking off their damn rockers, it seems likely that whoever wins the nomination would wholeheartedly back most, if not all, of the policy items put forth by Project 2025. Lord knows Trump isn't going to read any of this, so he'll likely just hand it off, as is, to be implemented by people who can read good and stuff. So what do? We make extra
I'm going to tell you what we do. Are you ready? You ready? What we do? Vote blue no matter who. This is not a game anymore. Like, seriously, the ramifications of not voting or, throwing away your vote in any way or the other, you vote for anybody other than the front runner for the DNC, you are enabling this shit. You are giving the keys to the country to far-right Christo-fascism. That is what you are doing at this point. There is no more, and we will get to some other things here as to why this is so important. But there is no more like, oh well, Biden and Trump really they're not really that different, blah, blah, blah. No. None of that. There are some horrendous things we're gonna get into about some stuff Biden's been saying and doing lately. And his approval rating is tanked. Well, it hasn't tanked, but it's not been good. And we'll get to it. But that is all the more reason why you need to do your part. Oops.
damn fucking sure that the Republican doesn't win the election in 2024. This is an all-hands-on-deck
Facts.
situation, my friends. Do I want Biden? No, but he is once again the best choice that we have. You
Facts.
also need to vote in Democratic senators and representatives as well. You need to bring your roommates and your partners and your family members and make sure that they vote. You need to call them ahead of time and be like, hi, what's your plan for voting? You need to be thinking about this early and often. You need to be just a
And remember, for people voting blue, you vote on the 2nd. For people voting even green, anything other than blue, you vote on the 3rd, or the 4th or the 5th, I don't really care when, just not the 2nd.
little bit scared. Not to be fear-mongery, but this is genuinely a terrifying prospect for our government that feels really, really imminent. Of course, any of these unilateral actions that a Republican president could theoretically take could then also be challenged in courts, but he's packed the courts, including the Supreme Court, and the result of attempting to implement all of these new policies in the first 180 days would be sheer chaos. John F. Kelly, Trump's literal chief of staff, has said it would be chaotic. It just simply would be chaotic because he'd continually be trying to exceed his authority, but the sycophants would go along with it. It would be a non-stop gunfight with the Congress and the courts. Even if the theoretical Republican president couldn't get through all of these policy proposals, it would still create a level of chaos that could further undermine trust in the government as a whole. The good news, if you could call it that, is that Project 2025 is radical. It does not comport with how the majority of Americans feel. 71% of Americans support same-sex marriage. 85% of Americans believe abortion should be legal under at least certain circumstances, and only 13% say it should be illegal under all circumstances. 69% of
Again, this is dispelling the myth that the conservatives are the moral majority. They are not. And polling data shows that, as Leah is going over here.
Americans believe that the U.S. should take steps to become carbon neutral by 2050. The number of adults in the U.S. who identify as Christian has fallen by 25% since the 1990s. For most people, Democrats, centrists, and even some Republicans, Project 2025 goes way too far and represents an upheaval and existential threat that is beyond what most people want to see in the U.S. government. So my hope is that the more people who know the actual contents of the Project 2025 plan, the more people will get out and vote to make sure the hellscape it presents never comes to fruition. Sharing this video with your networks is a great place to start. If you like this video, you might also like my video about why conservatives are obsessed with election fraud. Thank you to my Patreon supporters, including my newest patrons, and an extra special shout out to my multi-platinum patrons, Anthony Giles and Brett Piontek. If you're interested in behind-the-scenes content, access to my research and show notes, content about my dog, and all sorts of other stuff, consider joining me over on Patreon today. Thanks so much for watching. Have a good day. Bye-bye.
Okay. So that was a very good video. Again, if you want to watch the whole thing without my constant interjecting, feel free. Leah Miller, the conservative plan to take over the country. You need to know about this. I highly doubt anyone is watching my content that isn't already familiar with that video, but in any case, maybe. So, yeah, it's big. It's very, very important, imperative that you vote blue no matter who. I don't care if Biden croaks and they put Kamala. I don't care if they put Nancy Pelosi. I don't care if they put Clinton again. I don't care. We cannot let the fascists win. And that is what we were up against. Christo-fascism. But how did we get here? Why is this so wrapped up in Christianity specifically? Is there anything about Christianity or anything that makes it worse than any other religion? No. Not at all. But it is interesting to see why Christianity specifically is so big here, and how the religious right ruined everything. Okay, so I was gonna go through this video, but I literally just sat here and watched the whole video because I didn't have anything to add, because she, which I've now confirmed her pronouns are she/hers, this video is just incredible. I highly recommend checking this out on your own. How the religious right ruined everything. It's absolutely incredible. But apart from that, back to the specifically political stuff and the whole vote blue no matter who. You see, the Republicans recently had this whole thing where the old House Speaker, can't remember his name off the top of my head, McCarthy, he was voted out, and they had to scramble to get a new guy. And they ended up getting a new guy. And here's what we need to know about Mike Johnson, the new guy.
Some key points of his resume: he's a lawyer by trade with a background in constitutional law. He parlayed that experience in part in 2020 to write some of the reasoning that the Trump campaign and others sought to use to overturn the election results.
That's right. He's an insurrectionist. The House Speaker, many people that we actually have in politics and stuff, it's been found that people in Trump's cabinet, people in DeSantis' campaign, many of these people are far right wing, let's be real, Nazis, insurrectionists, election deniers, all these different people. Yeah, it's insane.
Additionally, he's got a hardline conservative record on things like abortion rights, abortion access, and LGBTQ plus issues. That's something that Democrats are seizing on in the aftermath of his election, and much more will be learned even as the days go on, as America familiarizes themselves with this new congressman turned speaker.
Yeah. Hardline stance, as in he wants to outlaw that shit. Now, I talked before about the conflict with Israel and Palestine, and just to be clear once again, I do stand with Palestine. I do not condone acts of terrorism by Hamas or any other organization that are attacking innocent people in Israel or otherwise, but I also do not stand with the horrific genocide that Israel is enacting and has been enacting upon Palestinians for decades now. Biden, however, unequivocally does support Israel. And his approval rating is at 37% now. It was in September at 41. Now it's at 37. This is overall. Republicans haven't changed. Independents, they went down. Democrats went down. It's not great. It's not great. And I need you to understand, with everything that we just saw about Project 2025, it is horrendous that Biden or anyone would support the acts that Israel has been and is taking. The, again, literal genocide that they are committing. But once again, we really are in a vote blue no matter who situation. The fact that the president is backing Israel in this conflict is understandable, not morally, but politically, it's understandable. It's horrific, and it's not good. But what do you think would happen if Trump was in office? How do you think he would handle this? How do you think any of the GOP, do you think they would be against this? No. We talked about the craziness of the GOP and the, Christofascism and all that. Part of that is unequivocal support of Israel. Why? Because as I've talked about before, many Christian evangelicals, especially, which a lot of the GOP are legitimately believe that if they reunite the Holy Land of Israel, they are going to cause the start of the rapture. So they literally believe this and give Israel full support. And check this out.
Before I get to the progress Australia and the United States have made today, I want to say just a very few words about the situation in the Middle East. The anger, the hurt, the sense of outrage that the Israeli people are feeling after the brutally inflicted devastation by Hamas is completely understandable. Israel has the right, and I would...
Just to be clear, this was on October 31st. So this wasn't like the 7th when this first happened.
Would add a responsibility to respond to the slaughter of their people. And we will ensure Israel has what it needs to defend itself against these terrorists. That's a guarantee. We also have to remember that Hamas does not represent, let me say it again, Hamas does not represent the vast majority of the Palestinian people in
Okay, that's good.
the Gaza Strip or anywhere else. Hamas is hiding behind Palestinian civilians and is despicable and, not surprisingly, cowardly as well.
That is true.
We're also working around the clock together with our partners in the region to secure the release of hostages, and including American citizens left behind and held by Hamas, and the safe passage of foreign nationals out of Gaza, not just Americans, but Australians and a whole range of people who are trapped in Gaza. I also want to take a moment to look ahead toward the future that we seek. Israelis and Palestinians equally deserve to live side by side in safety, dignity, and peace. There's no going back to the status quo as it stood on October the 6th. That means ensuring Hamas can no longer terrorize Israel and use Palestinian civilians as human shields. It also means that when this crisis is over, there has to be a vision of what comes next, and in our view, it has to be a two-state solution. It means a concentrated effort from all the parties, Israelis, Palestinians, regional partners, global leaders, to put us on a path toward peace. In the past few weeks, I've spoken to leaders throughout the region, including King Abdullah of Jordan, President Sisi of Egypt, President Abbas of the Palestinian Authority, and just yesterday with the Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia, about making sure there's real hope in the region.
There's no way to speed this up, guys, by the way, otherwise I definitely would.
For a better
He talks very slow.
future. About the need, and I mean this sincerely, about the need to work toward a greater integration for Israel, while insisting that the aspirations of the Palestinian people will be part of that future as well. I'm convinced one of the reasons Hamas attacked when they did, and I have no proof of this, just my instinct tells me, is because of the progress we were making towards regional integration for Israel and regional integration overall. and we can't leave that work behind. And one more word on this. I continue to be alarmed about extremist settlers attacking Palestinians in the West Bank. That pouring gasoline on fire is what it's like. This was a deal. The deal was made, and they're attacking Palestinians in places that they're entitled to be. And it has to stop.
Okay. I don't disagree with this. In the past 2 weeks, Biden. I mean, but the thing, yeah. So the thing is, he has been. Yeah, he's been. Oh my god! I wish I could speed this shit up. Towards those situations. I don't know. Wait, is this the same thing? Yeah, same thing. But wait, what is this? God damn it! This is 9 fucking minutes. I mean, he is definitely doing solidarity with Israel. But what about aid to Gaza? I mean, from what I'm seeing, I don't know. It sounds like he's just being diplomatic about this. I'm not sure I disagree. Because I can say and condemn Israel for being genocidal. But if the president is trying to, you know, diplomatically work with them and trying to, you know, convince Israel essentially to do the right thing, can he be that hard against them? I'm not really sure. I mean, look, Biden has been a, like, reach across the aisle kind of guy, and I get it, because, like, you know, I try to be that way myself, but I don't know. I don't know if this is, like, this doesn't, you know, I've been hearing about this, like, unfettered support. I'm not seeing it. It sounds like he's being pretty, I mean, this is more recent, mind you, but I mean, I don't know, that sounded pretty good to me. I would agree. And you know, I do want to be clear about this as well, right? There are people who are 100% using on both sides of the issue. There are people who are using the situation, you know, with Israel to demonize Jewish people specifically, and to just, you know, attack Israel's. And of course, a lot of these people are, you know, Nazis and stuff. But, like, and there are people who are also, you know, doing the same with you know, Islamic people, Arabic people, even in America and other Western countries. But I mean, at the end of the day, that whole conflict really does come down to, like, if we can understand that with Russia and Ukraine, Russia is in the wrong, it's pretty simple to understand as well that with Israel and Palestine, Israel is in the wrong. You know, like, we should be giving, I don't know, man, you know, it's that whole thing where it's like, it isn't morally complicated, but how you deal with the situation on a political front is complicated. And I don't know, man, I feel, I mean, I don't know, some of you guys might hate me for this, but I don't know, man. I kind of feel like this is the right thing to do. When was this approval rating? I mean, we're only in November 2nd now at the time of recording, so I mean, yeah. I don't know. I am hopeful. What I would take away from this is that, like, yes, there are definitely problems. There are reasons to be concerned, and there is definitely no reason to say, "Oh, I'm just going to stay home. We'll be all right." Like, there's no reason to do that. You do need to, either get out and vote or, do a mail-in ballot, whatever, however you're going to vote. But 100% vote blue no matter who. Like, there is no more games with this because, for one, I don't see that Biden is like, I'm not seeing this like unequivocal support I keep hearing about, but also Project 2025 could destroy us. So it's not a joke. Even if he was unequivocally supporting Israel, I would still say, I don't give a fuck, vote for him. He's not the Christo-fascist. But, even then, I mean, it looks like he's more level-headed about the situation. He's willing to say, like, yeah, well, what Israel... I mean, he's not full-on condemning Israel, but he's not necessarily condoning it. I don't know, man. I have hope that him and his cabinet and all these different things will come to the morally correct answer and will possibly, even over time, even in the next couple months, potentially begin to actually and actively condemn Israel more and give more support to Gaza. I hope that we can stop playing the song and dance with Israel at some point. But, I mean, he's in a tough spot. And anyone that thinks anyone would do something different than, like, if you think a Republican candidate would do something different than him, you are out of your mind. So, yes, it looks bleak. Project 2025 is much bleaker. So that's why it's important for you, for me, for all of us to do our part. Vote blue no matter who. Even if things like this happen, and even if Biden doesn't do the right thing and his cabinet doesn't do the right thing in regards to Israel-Palestine. If your choice is between a milquetoast liberal, which he's been pretty progressive on other issues anyway, but if your choice is between a liberal and a fascist, I think the choice is pretty clear. I'm not really a big fan of the term cut a liberal and a fascist bleeds. I don't agree with that. But, yeah. Anyway, I know this is pretty heavy one, again, getting some of those out lately. But I really want to just stress the severity of the situation and why it's so important that you do in fact vote blue no matter who. I can't stress that enough because we are up against fascism. And if the right wins in 2025, we might never have another election again. But as always, guys, these are my thoughts. Let me know what yours are in the comments down below. Follow me on social media for more. Subscribe and ring the bell to stay up to date. Leave a like if you like. And if not, I hope you find something to do like. Take care of each other out there, guys. Peace and love.